The following segments are pre-recorded and sponsored by Longworth Productions.
Water resources, transit, and more on Triad Today. Hello everyone, I'm Jim Longworth and welcome to a special edition of Triad Today, coming to you once again from the Senior Botanical Garden in Kernersville. I say special because over the next half hour, we're going to be meeting and talking with some very special folks who mainly stay behind the scenes. You don't see them in the headlines too often, but they stay behind the scenes and do such important work to help improve the quality of life for folks throughout the city of Greensboro. We start out talking with our friend Sue Schwartz. She's Planning Director for the city of Greensboro. Thanks for coming, Sue.
Thanks, Jim, for having me.
First of all, we'll get to the nuts and bolts here in a second, but I wanted to congratulate you on being elected president-elect of the American Planning Association. Now, how large is that association? What's it all about, and how long have you been in it?
Well, it's an organization that has 40,000 members.
Wow.
It has been around in different iterations since about 1908 or so, but it is the primary source for professional planners, planning education for elected and appointed officials across the country. And I've been a member since I've been a planner, which has been 40 years.
40? You don't look old enough to have been a planner.
I started when I was 12. It's the comment, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, that in being a member of an association like this, city, county planners, folks like that, I assume go to a meeting once in a while or they communicate once in a while. How does that, being a member of that kind of organization, rather than just the camaraderie and whatever, how has that helped you in your job and the way you do it in Greensboro?
Well, I've been very fortunate. I didn't just find a job or a profession, I found a vocation. Part of being a member of something like APA is finding like-minded professionals who kind of give each other energy and ideas and creativity. You have a friend bank that you can bounce things off of and maybe come up with some crazy ideas that just might work, or some consolation when things didn't work. So there's part of that. I also had been in other leadership positions in the organization and had the opportunity to travel, and there's just so many interesting things going on across the country, ideas you can appropriate and use for Greensboro or share what we're doing in Greensboro. So it's really just been a way that amplifies what I've learned, amplifies what things I can bring back.
Absolutely, and I want to ask you very quickly about how the city can benefit from your association, because just like with politicians, you'll say, "Oh, this person's my local representative. What are you going to do for us?" So how does your being active in this, and especially as you take over as president of this national organization, how's that going to benefit folks that are watching this?
Well, part of it is giving the exposure about Greensboro and the area that we are from. Some people may have heard of us, but bragging about the things that we've accomplished. And we're in this incredible growth. I wouldn't even call it a spurt. It feels like a marathon right now. And being able to talk about how we're handling that, how we attracted it, what are some of the ideas for housing and transportation that we have to now take into consideration. So one, bragging about us, but two, learning from other cities have been through this, other areas of the country. What can I learn and bring back from them? Pitfalls we can avoid, maybe some extremely creative ideas we might want to give a shot here. So I think a exchange of resources and ideas is probably the biggest thing.
Now you officially take over in 1st of 2024, so what are you looking forward to when you actually become the president?
Well, first year as president-elect, so it's kind of like a learning curve. So you figure out what the latest issues are within the organization, within the governing body of the board of directors. I think the thing I'm looking through the most is that travel again to meet planners and see things. So being able to get out, but also we have expanded the American Planning Association more international looking. There are communities and countries that need our expertise and help, but also learn from there. And last but not least, continuing having the conversation about how we undo the impacts of redlining across the country.
Right, and we only have a few seconds left. What's rewarding to you about being a planner?
It is the fundamental part of democracy. We talk as a community about our hopes and dreams for the future, the problems we want to address. There's no one that really has a magic solution, but coming together, bringing communities members together to figure that out is one of the reasons that just I'm never bored. It's a very rewarding career.
Well, we're lucky to have you. Up on the screen, I want to make sure folks can go to this. The general website is greensboro-nc.gov. I hope they will check that out. Sue, you are a great ambassador for the city.
Thank you.
And thanks for all you do.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back after this.
Need help buying food? Everyone needs help sometimes. Food Nutrition Services may be able to help you buy food and free up your money for other expenses, such as utilities and medicine. To receive F&S assistance, households must meet income limits. You may be able to get assistance even if you own a home, car, land, property, or have a retirement plan or money in the bank. Second Harvest Food Bank of Northwest North Carolina team members can help you with the application process over the phone. To receive help or if you have any questions, call 336-422-7758.
Back now on this special edition of Triad Today, as we salute some of the folks that work behind the scenes in the city of Greensboro to help improve quality of life for everyone. And one of those folks that does that day in and day out is our special guest, first-time visitor to the show, Reginald Mason. And he says some people call him Reggie, so I don't know. You want me to call you Reggie?
Reggie's fine.
All right. He says his wife calls him Reginald when he gets in trouble. Reggie is director of the transit department for the city of Greensboro. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We talked before we started taping the show that you're originally from Houston, but aside from that, tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to be here.
Well, I've been working in mass transit well over 25 years now. I've worked in Chicago, Houston, Phoenix,
Baltimore, wasn't it?
San Francisco, Baltimore, and Atlanta.
Yeah.
I've worked both on the private side as a consultant and on the agency side.
Yeah, with all that experience, and I'm thinking, gosh, Chicago and Baltimore and all these big cities, some people would say, well, gee, you know, what drew you to Greensboro?
Well, what drew me to Greensboro was really, you know, what this current city manager, Toga Joe, but he has a vision for the city of Greensboro and mass transit. And as I looked at the job and the Go Borough plan, which was rolled out recently, that really piqued my interest in coming to Greensboro. And then I applied for the position, of course, was hired. So,
right. So are you saying sort of that your vision sort of aligns right with the city managers?
Yes, it does. Actually, it really, really does when it comes to mass transit and how we want to grow mass transit, not only just in the city of Greensboro, but in the region to help with the economic development and employment hubs that are moving to our region.
You mentioned, you dropped the phrase on me a second ago, and I think I interrupted you, but you mentioned the term Go Borough.
Yes.
Now, does that have anything to do with the kind of the long-range vision you're talking about? Explain what that's all about.
Okay, well, the Go Borough plan is a long-range transit plan where we're looking at essentially by 2045, the city of Greensboro being car optional. And with this particular plan, when it was introduced, we introduced two concepts, a ridership concept and a coverage concept. And with that plan, with the ridership concept, it's more frequent service throughout the city and access to jobs and more, you know, doctor's appointments, shopping, things like that. Which when I say frequent service, I mean 15-minute service on the majority of our routes.
Right.
On the coverage side, that would expand our service throughout the community, but still would be a similar type service that we have now, which is 30-minute and 60-minute type service. The ridership concept, like I said, will get folks more access to jobs and more frequent bus service.
And that's the key to everything in it, Reggie, is that access thing, because that can be a barrier to people to try
Yes,
to
it
get
is.
jobs, to health care and everything, right?
Yes, it is. That's a big barrier right now, because our current system, we call a hub and spoke system, where all of our buses go into the depot. This system has been like that essentially since 1946.
That's right.
So we need to make some major changes in mass transit to improve how we get folks around the community.
You know, some folks could be watching this and listening to you and say, well, that's fine, Reggie, but, you know, what does this really mean to me as an individual? How can I support what you're trying to do, what your vision is, or can the community help support it?
Well, how that can help is, you know, right now, like I said, with the Go Borough plan, we had a consultant that went out and did surveys for us in the community. We received over 1,700 respondents, and they were all positive, about which concept we should use, ridership and/or coverage.
So you're getting input from
We
people.
get input from people, and also, to do this, we would have to go on the ballot to get a transit tax to support the growth of mass transit.
I got you. So when that comes about, you're going to need everybody pulling together.
We're going to need everyone pulling together because, right now, there's a phrase that the American Public Transportation Association uses. It says, as public transit grows, the community grows.
Absolutely.
And what they mean by that, it brings in a lot more economic development.
I tell you what, I just think what you're doing is great, and I'm glad you're on the job and have that vision and everything. I want to put up on screen before I forget, greensboro-nc.gov. It's the general website, which we'll keep reminding folks about throughout the program. Reggie, thanks so much for what you're doing, and I'm glad you're here and doing it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, will you come back sometime?
Yes, I will.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. Hi, I'm Jim Longworth, reminding you that Triad Today is now streaming on WFMY Plus, available free on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Back now on this special edition of Triad Today, as we meet and talk with lots of great folks who work behind the scenes to improve quality of life for all the folks in the city of Greensboro. And our special guest for this segment is Shauna Tillery. She's Manager of Planning and Project Development for the city of Greensboro. Thanks for coming here.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I've been hearing about something called the Windsor, I'm going to read this because you emailed me, the Windsor-Chavis NOCO Complex.
Community complex.
Community complex, so I got that. Now, what is that?
So it is a new, innovative community hub that we're building in Greensboro. So this will be the third rendition of the Windsor Recreation Center, along with NOCO Park. So in the 1920s and 30s, this was one site that was the first Windsor Recreation Center in NOCO Park. With the development of Eastgate City Boulevard during the 1950s, when a lot of interstates and thoroughfare plans came,
right,
the site was bisected. So we had two separate parcels, a north parcel and a south parcel. This has been a really jewel of East Greensboro for a number of years. But back in the 2012, 2013 timeframe, our Parks and Recreation Director, Nasha McCrae, and the Public Libraries Director, Bridget Blanton, had this great idea to start to bring community services to the community.
Sure.
To bring government outside of the box that we live in,
right,
directly to the community. So that is where the idea for this community complex came from. And so we've been working on this with bond funding that was approved in 2016 to start the planning for this facility, along with public engagement for the community.
So the planning sort of started the vision in 2016, but I mean, is your vision for this exactly what you're talking about? So it's sort of a one-stop, easy access sort of a center? Is that your vision?
That is the vision of the city and the community residents. So when we started engagement back in 2019, so right before COVID, we went to the public and said, okay, what are the programmatic elements from both a library, a recreation city, and a community services, city services perspective that you would like to see in this facility? So it's just not a building. We also have a park component to it. So that was part of that. What kind of outdoor recreation opportunities would you like to see revitalized? If you've been to NOCO Park over a number of years, it does not look great. We have very old bathrooms and field perspectives that we will be renovating as part of this project. The building itself will be something that's innovative that we've never done before. One of the uniquenesses about this is that we're not just building a library and a rec center, we're integrating the programmatic pieces to that in a different way. We're also going to have within this facility at roughly 65,000 square feet, a indoor aquatics component. That was something very important we heard from the public.
Right.
Previously, there was almost like a lake behind the recreation center when it was originally built. Lots of folks learned how to swim, so this will have an indoor aquatics piece, a gymnasium, a teaching kitchen, a sensory room,
wow,
a multi-purpose spaces within it that can be utilized for community services, a dance and fitness component. We'll also have a walking track and a locker room, support facilities, Guilford County is also committed to being a partner in this project. They have committed $15 million to it.
That's great.
So they will have a presence in the facility from the Department of Health and Human Services and DSS. So we'll be able to do applications for Medicare and Medicaid there. We're also working on our partnership with Cone Health to be able to provide specific services there from Cone Health. And then our teaching kitchen will have a partnership with the Cooperative Extension. We're creating a teaching kitchen that looks like a regular home as opposed to an industrial feel, so that it'll be less restrictive, being able to bring those health services to the community.
It sounds like there's nothing that you can't do or access from there. I just think it's great. Now, when are you going to start shoveling, as they say, shoveling the dirt to get this thing going?
Yeah, so we're completing the design development actually this month, right before Christmas. I get to review a lot of plans, and then we'll be moving into our construction documents and permitting. We are anticipating demolition by early fall of next year, and it'll be about a 2-year construction timeframe.
So I can go in and start looking at it in a couple of years.
Yes, and so we're going to be publicizing more of the information. We've got a new website being developed right now, and then we'll have timelines and pictures and signage available after the first of the year.
Well, Shauna, you got a lot of folks excited about this just from your descriptions. I think it's very innovative. I appreciate your vision for this, and I think it's going to be great. Up on screen, this is the general website, greensboro-nc.gov, and then later on you can check out, and I'm sure crisscross over into a different portal and learn more about it specifically as things get moving on. Shauna, thanks for everything.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this.
Are you looking to jumpstart your future in the fast-paced, rapidly growing food industry? In Second Harvest Food Bank's Providence Culinary Training Program, you'll learn the craft and art of cooking, plus business and management skills, science and nutrition, and essential life skills. Providence Culinary Training has helped hundreds of individuals just like you launch successful culinary careers. There's no reason to wait to turn your passion for food into an exciting career. Check out the upcoming class schedule on our website at providencews.org.
Hi, I'm Jim Longworth, reminding you to catch my column Longworth at Large and Yes Weekly every week. It's available throughout the Triad, or you can go online, yesweekly.com. Back now on this special edition of Triad Today, as we salute, meet, and talk with some great folks who work behind the scenes in the city of Greensboro to improve quality of life for all of us. And I'm just so glad to meet these great folks. One of them is sitting right next to me. Mike Borchers is Director of the Water Resources Department in the city of Greensboro. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
By way of Saratoga, New York, and now a North Carolinian.
Absolutely.
For
Great
how
state.
many years? You've been down here for how many years?
Over 20 years.
All right. See, I'll make you official. You're
Thank
an official Southerner.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Now, most folks, seriously, most folks don't realize the magnitude of the system that you oversee. I'm going to put you on the spot. I mean, how many miles of water supply and sewer lines does Greensboro have? I mean, because it's massive.
It is. If you look at the entire city and even outside the city of Greensboro's jurisdictional limits, 3,000 miles. They add up water and sewer lines. 3,000
Oh my
miles
gosh.
that we are responsible for.
What's the most challenging aspect of trying to oversee something this massive?
Right now, in today's day and age, there's a couple of factors. First, it's staffing. As you know, many industries and businesses have seen very difficult times hiring people. So it's that, and it's knowledge retention. So we have, of course, attrition like everyone else, but when you lose a 30-year employee, they retire, it's so hard to replace that. And then the other big thing is materials. So not only costs, but supply chain issues has been another big issue for us in maintaining our system.
You know, Mike, I don't have to tell you that we've had tremendous growth, not just in Greensboro, but look at the things going in Randolph and Winston, all over the area. In that regard, how are you planning for capacity in your job and what you're doing?
That's a great question, and that's really the role of the Director of Water Resources, is working, of course, with the City Manager's Office and City Council, is how are we planning for the next 50 plus years? So we do a couple of things. We do master planning on the water and wastewater side, but the other thing we do is we look at, okay, how can we build the current capacity that we have? On the water treatment side, I'm just very thankful for my predecessors, former council council members as well as our current council, and they had the forethought to invest in the Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority. So that's Randleman Reservoir. You may be familiar with it.
Right.
They've got a water treatment plant right there. Greensboro has a 53% ownership stake in it. So Greensboro, right at the get-go, said we want to be a partner. So 53% of whatever that water plant makes or produces, it comes up to Greensboro. So we're expanding that plant. So Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority is starting the process to do the design to expand the plant to about 21 million gallons per day, and we will get a portion of that as well.
Speaking of partners, I'm thinking about the Greensboro-Randolph mega site. What kind of impact is that going to have on what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. A very big one from an economic development standpoint. We have been very fortunate in our region to see all of the economic development, whether it's at the airport, whether it's down there in Randolph County at the mega site. So for us, it's a big impact as far as planning for the future. How can we're ahead of the game as far as meeting Toyota's needs. We know exactly how much water and sewer they need. So now for us, it's how do we plan for the ripple effect?
Right.
Those secondary and tertiary suppliers and developers and builders.
You and I have just talked about big corporations. We talked about partnerships. We talked about growth. We talked about all this great stuff. But if somebody's watching, say, hey, Mike, I'm just one person here. What does all this benefit me?
Well, first and foremost, we're not going to forget our customers. That's the most important thing. We have about 119,000 metered accounts. And so the first and foremost, we take care of our current customers. But also, I think if we support economic development, that has, again, that ripple effect, has the opportunity for jobs and for us to continue to experience the growth and the development that we all would like to see. And then again, it's just planning for the future is really what it comes down to.
Well, before time runs out, I'm just curious, you and I've never met until just now. You're in a very kind of technical, complicated field and a very important one. What drew you to that? I mean, what was the interest?
For me, it starts back at college. So I went to school at New York Maritime College up in New York, marine engineering, went into the Navy for 5 years. So I served my country in the nuclear power program. And then when I got out, I worked for a company ultimately in Tennessee, but made my way over to North Carolina, where I worked in Moncure at a plant making industrial polyester. So my whole career has really been operational and technical.
Right.
So for me, it was just that draw of being able to serve, and from a technical standpoint, our community. So it's just been a great blessing.
Well, I tell you, my friend, we appreciate your service, not only to the country, but to this area where you're doing lots to keep us growing.
Absolutely.
And growing that capacity. Up on screen, greensboro-nc.gov is the general website that I'd like for you to check out. Mike, thanks for everything.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
We'll be right back after this.
Every cookie sold in the Girl Scout Cookie Program helps girls learn lifelong lessons in people skills, decision making, money management, goal setting, and business ethics. It's amazing how much you can learn from a cookie. The Girl Scout Cookie Program. Think outside the box.
Back now on this special edition of Triad Today, as we continue to meet and salute and talk with some great folks who work behind the scenes day in and day out to help improve quality of life for the folks in the city of Greensboro. Our special guest in this final segment of the half hour is LaToya Caesar Crawford. She's manager of something called the Intergovernmental Relations Department, City of Greensboro. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I guess I'd be remiss if my first question wasn't, tell me what this Intergovernmental Relations Office is. What does that mean?
Absolutely. So our office is the central place where we develop, execute, and monitor a lobbying strategy at the state and federal levels for our city.
Now, why is that important for the city? For the folks just watching today that say, well, why do I care?
Sure. So cities have priorities, really big ones, right? Aging infrastructure, public safety, economic development. Those priorities have to be funded. That money has to come from somewhere. And so our cities, they develop budgets every year, but oftentimes those are limited to very specific sources of revenue. For our city, mostly that's property tax. And so when we think about being able to accomplish some of the larger priorities, we've got to be thinking about how we procure additional funding in order to do that. And that's where our office comes in. We also advocate for very specific legislation aligned to those priorities as well.
Yeah. Now, give us sort of a recap on some of the federal funding that you have received and how that's being used.
So we find ourselves in a historic place. Normally every year we apply for earmark funding, and we'll receive, several, $1 million, and we're always grateful for that. This year, we have been recommended inside of the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Bill for all of our community-funded projects to be funded this year. So if we are successful in passing a federal budget, we will be awarded $6.08 million to include funding for Windsor-Chavis-Noco, which we talked about previously,
right.
For Bingham Park, for our A&Y Greenway, and for our depot downtown.
All right, we've talked about the feds. Let's come closer to home in Raleigh with the state legislature. Do you also get state funding or special grants or funding from the state legislature, and how is that used?
We do. This legislative session, we asked the state for a very specific amount of money to address two things. Number one, vacant buildings that are in our downtown area. They are all in different stages of need of repair for environmental remediation. The second one is a project that's very near and dear to the heart of East Greensboro. It's called Bingham Park. It is a pre-regulatory landfill that's sitting in the midst of a community in East Greensboro. It's called Bingham Park, but it cannot be used as a park.
Right.
You can't plant trees, or you can't do any of the things that typically a community would benefit from. And so we asked the state to help us to fund a remediation plan for Bingham Park. We're happy to say that we've been awarded $11 million by the state this legislative session to address both needs. And so we're super excited because, again, that's historic for our city.
You have so much responsibility in your job, and it's so important. I'm wondering what prepared you for this kind of work?
So it's an interesting story. I spent a lot of time in a previous life in education policy, and I was actually a school leader and a district leader for a long time.
Okay.
And one of the things that you realize very quickly is that there is no policy that is made at the federal or state level that doesn't impact students. It doesn't impact the school. And so partly I'm grateful for being able to manage so many different stakeholders, because when you run a school, you're running a small city. But the other part of it is this work is near and dear to my heart. We're helping to build a greater city for young people. And that's the goal. The goal is to be able to create a place where young people can do amazing things. And the only way we do that is to stay focused on our priorities and facilitate funding to make that happen.
And unlike a lot of things that tend to be long range and people will start to lose interest in it, you're working on things at both ends, the things that are going to be happening fairly soon, and then things that will benefit us long range.
Yeah, folks will always be interested in funding. That will never change. We'll always be interested in trying to raise as much as we can to fulfill the goals and the priorities that we lay out. So that's really important. The other piece is legislation, advocating for those things that we know are going to benefit our city.
Well, LaToya, I appreciate what you're doing to try to coordinate all this. It's a massive responsibility to, keep track of federal dollars, state dollars that are coming in to benefit people locally. And then you really bring it home, and I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
I want for the last time in this half hour to mention the general website, greensboro-nc.gov, and I hope you will check that out and learn about all the kinds of things that we discussed during the half hour. And I would be remiss if I also didn't thank my friend Carla Banks, who put all this together, brought the folks to us, and came up with the topics. A great gal, Carla Banks. For all of us here on Triad Today, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next week.